All right. Welcome everybody to my sales coaching clinic number 3. We don't have Robbie and Jill this time around, so I'm going to try to wing it. There you go. And I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about, the title of it is Prepare to Win. And the whole idea that we're going to talk about is preparation. I heard somebody once tell me a while back that the person who actually wins the regatta has usually won it even before he gets to the start line. And I think that's actually really true, at least locally. And there is a certain amount of luck involved with sailing. Going out, I think we've all seen that one person taking the flyer out to the one corner of the course only to see the ship go in their favor and they go from 0 to hero. So there is a little bit of that, but in the long term, it's mostly a matter of preparing properly, I think. So I've got a lot of information I want to share. Feel free to take notes. Also feel free to ask questions. We'll make it interactive. Unlike Robbie and Jill, I don't have a lot of really cool video, unfortunately, so you're going to end up it'll be more of a discussion, I think, than anything else. I do have one video. I just going to show a little 3-minute video in the middle of all this just to break it up so y'all can take a break of the worlds at the Hobie 16 worlds that we did in Florida, Captiva Island, Sanibel, last November. It's just, their promo or whatever. Little background about me. I think most of you know me. The only one I don't know is John, but started my sail 2 years ago. Been sailing catamarans now for about 35 years. Mostly in the Hobie 16, but also in the Hobie 17 and 18. And I've dabbled on the C2, the Tiger, the F16, and a couple of other ones, but not really very much. The main thing is it's been a heavy dose of Hobie sailing, but that doesn't mean that I'm locked into Hobie personally. I think they're all great, actually, and they all fit a niche. And I do want to get down to Clearwater and have Robbie teach me how to foil one of those Nacras. So I'm hoping to do that before this thing's all done. Let me see here. So I've been sailing for 35 years at the national and the world level. Done about 4, I think, worlds, a ton of North Americans. Only one North American, that was in the 18 class a couple of years ago. Wasn't any big deal, but it does mean I know how to get around the course reasonably well. And consistently do top 15 in the Hobie 16s in a fleet of about 60 or 70 typically. But to my credit, they'd say that sometimes some of the best teachers aren't always the best sailors. So I'm running on that one, all right? The question is, well, when do I start preparing? And I would say right now, and actually I would even go a step back and say you should have been starting last week when Robbie and Jill were telling you, giving you a whole bunch of exercises that you can be doing to strengthen your muscles and get ready into sailing shape. I'll admit I took the winter off. Well, no, that's not true. I was in the pool swimming 3 times a week. But when this COVID thing hit, I was pretty much done. I took a few weeks off. And about late April, I went, I'm getting fat here. I better get back to it. So, yeah, I got started on it. And let me turn this thing off. And I'd encourage you guys to do that. Country's loosening up at different rates here. Sooner or later, we're going to go sailing. And you want to be in good shape for that. So you can start exercising immediately. A couple other things you can do in this lockdown. You can clean up and repair your boats. I was just down at my my practice boat, I got two. My race boat. I got two, a practice and a race boat. I was down in my race boat today, and I realized I had locked myself out of the front cat box. So it's pretty good to kind of figure all that stuff out early on. But yeah, you want to go over your boat and start checking it out. All right. You got your boat. You need to check out your trailer, because I can tell you, none of your lights work. If it's winded over, none of your trailer lights work. Just go into the season assuming that. All right. Your boat box. I'm hoping someday I'll get into that boat box, and I'll probably have to drill it out and start taking inventory what I have and what I don't have. Also, your gear. Start looking at your gear if you haven't looked at it in a few months, because that's what you're going to depend on to keep you on the wire and not falling in the water and any of that stuff. Boy, it's a bad feeling, you know, and it usually happens when you're leading the race and you're trapped out, and all of a sudden the Velcro on your trapeze harness lets go, and all of a sudden you're down here and you can't even reach the handle, and all hell goes breaks loose. So now's a good time to get that going. You can de-winterize that boat. Kind of goes hand in hand. All right. I don't know, for us, those of us in the northern climates, we have to winterize our boats. And even if you're in the southern climes, you still ought to be checking that thing out, going over your rings and your shackles and stuff like that. Okay. The devil is in the details, you guys, and the one that wins is the one that has spent the time on the details. All right. So take your time with it. It's important to maintain just a little side note, not about preparation, but it's important to maintain your boat throughout the season. All right. So as you see stuff, spend time on your boat. That's about prep, because it happens throughout before you actually get on the water. So make a note of stuff. There's usually something I got to do every time. Let me see. Okay, what else we got? We've got visualization. All right. So back in the late 80s, I was living in Bend, Oregon, skiing Mount Bachelor. And in the winter time, and back then, I was just an also-ran on the local Division 4 Pacific Northwest circuit, and I was mid-fleet or something. And so, and there was nothing to do in Bend, Oregon back then. I got 2 channels, and so when I was done watching Wheel of Fortune and something else, some other game show, that was it. I was done for the night. I would go in and I'd be reading. And when I got done reading, every night, I'd go to bed and I would visualize starts. And I might see myself late for the start. And I'd see myself early for the start. And I'd see myself nailing the start. And I'd see people attacking me and me defending and me attacking and them defending. And I'd see all these scenarios going on. And then the spring came and we started in on the season. And all of a sudden I found myself just nailing these starts. Now remember, I'm an also-ran. Nobody is paying attention to me. I'm not one of the big guns there. And all of a sudden I am owning the start line. And that taught me. But what would happen is I'd get halfway to 3/4 up that weather leg, and all of a sudden something else would happen, or on the downwind. And at the end of the season, I was analyzing and I go, oh, you know, I visualized my starts, but I never visualized my finishes, my upwinds, my downwinds, none of that. And these guys were just passing me like a freight train. So the next season, I started visualizing, and I won't say that I was winning every regatta or whatever, but I definitely moved up on the scale. They weren't passing me nearly as fast. And what starting does, as we all know, the Sail 1 design, the starting gets you out in front. And it's a lot easier to lose places than it is to gain, or it's a lot harder to, what do I want to say? It's a lot easier to lose, a lot easier to lose places than it is to gain places. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Anyhow, if you get an early start, you have a much better chance of doing well than if you're in your hose. And I don't know if you all remember images from the Olympics. I do. As a kid, I'd watch the Winter Olympics, and the skiers, they'd show the skiers, with a camera on the side before they were just in their warm-up, and they'd be looking like they were Stevie Wonder, going through the gates, visualizing the gate, okay? And it's at the Olympic level and every other level, so visualize, man. If you sail in a crewed boat, do a skills assessment. Have one of these video meetings with your crew and just talk about what's going on and do a skills assessment. And really, in terms of skills and assessment, I would cover likes and dislikes. All right. Well, I like to rig the boat. Great, because I don't. Okay, well then I'm not going to expect you to have an equal hand, because I think we all go into this with the idea that we're going to share everything 50-50. It's not going to happen. All right. And so figure out what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and then look at what you both don't like to do, because that's probably not going to get done. So, all right. So do that. The other thing is, write down your strengths and your weaknesses. All right. So, and be honest about it and evaluate it, because you guys can adapt and adjust, like I don't have really good eyesight. So if my crew has really good eyesight, it'd be really a big help if they can see where the marks are, stuff like that. I'm a real emotional person on and off the course, so I have to learn to control that. That's kind of a weakness, I think. So by analyzing and assessing what your strengths and your weaknesses are, you can become a better sailor. While we're in this lockdown, you can do a rules review. Dave Perry's book, 100 Rules Quiz or whatever. That's a great book. I think there's some online stuff too. And then the one thing you can really work on now too is your attitude. And it's the back in the 80s when I was that also ran guy and I was getting those great starts and those guys were passing me. One thing I realized was that up until that point, I had been a hunter. And now all of a sudden I was the hunted. And now I was at the top I was in leading, and I had all these people behind me and they were all gunning for me. And I got to tell you, the first few times I choked. I was like, oh, sheesh, man, what do I do? All right. But the more you get up there, the more you get used to it. All right. And so it starts I was at the local level. And then I started going to North Americans, and I can remember my first North Americans race that I was winning. And I was like, the old pucker factor kind of started kicking in there too, And but you know what? And I'm proud to say this last November when I was at the Worlds, I won a Worlds in Fiji, a Worlds race, not a Worlds, but I won a Worlds race. When I was in Florida in November, we had 2 races on the last day of the Masters. I won the first race with 56 boats, wire to wire. And you know what? I didn't get flustered. Went out the second race, did it again, only that time I started to get a little flustered, and I let a guy get in front of me on the last leg. And so I got a 1-2 for that day. But what that does is when you start, and I think you know what I'm talking about, is when you start doing well in certain regattas at whatever level you're sailing at, you start to build confidence, all right? And that's attitude. It's all about attitude. And I heard someone once tell me, fake it till you make it, all right? And one thing you can do is, while you're on the shore, at least, while you're in your home and in your cars and with your crew and everything else, start talking it, man. Start acting it, all right? Start laying it down, all right? Be there before you arrive. Now, I do need to put in a caveat. When you're on the water, don't be trying to shove your boat somewhere where it don't belong just because you faked it in there, all right? Like I did, all right? I'm just speaking from personal experience here. You want to have, you want to go conservative in that regard, around the marks, basically, all right? Every other time, man, you walk it, you talk it, you be it, all right? It's about attitude. Because if you're a mealy mouth, well, I don't know if I'm gonna, we're gonna try as hard as we can, and maybe we'll. It ain't gonna work. All right, I'll tell you. All right, there's sharks out there, man, and we will eat you up. All right, so you need to have confidence. You don't have to be super assertive. You don't have to be bravado and all of that. Just internal confidence. All right, that's all. And athletes, something I've been all my life tried to achieve is a confident humility, where you're humble about what you've done or what you've accomplished, but you at the same, because so often we see these braggadocios, man, I'm the greatest thing, you don't have to look too far in politics, I don't think either, but that's a whole different story. But you see these guys and they're spouting off themselves as their best cheerleader. Nobody likes that either, all right? So be humble and but be confident. Okay, any questions on any of that so far? All right. There's a lot of information here, you guys, so I'm going to break it down into different time frames, the week of, the day before, stuff like that. So that's all stuff that you can do right now and all season long. In summary, exercise, keep yourself physically fit. Multi-hull sailing is an athletic exercise, not like the big boats where we have umbrellas in our drinks. Keep your boat maintained, visualize, do a skills assessment with your crew, do a rules review, and check your attitude and make sure it's prepared to win. Okay, well, let's talk about now, they've lifted the order and there's some regatta finally that we can go to. All right, so let's talk about the week of. What are we going to do? All right. Well, first of all, I always like to make sure that my boat and my trailer are ready to go. All right. If there's anything that I didn't take care of from the last regatta, or again, the devil is in the details, you guys. It might be just a little piece of bungee. It might just be some little split ring that you might end up and the split ring might be out like that, and you might gash yourself in the middle of a race and have blood all over. So take care of the details. You want to communicate with your crew, all right? Communicate with him or her about the venue. Yeah, it's it's open water, it's salt water, it's fresh water. I always delineate things by fresh and salt water. Some of that is because of the buoyancy, but not really. That doesn't really affect things that much. But salt water is typically open water with waves, and fresh water is typically lake or river water that doesn't have the waves, unless of course you're in the river. But as a general rule, that's how I characterize the two. Talk to them about, well, yeah, it's going to be camping. We're going to stay in a hotel, B&B, whatever it might be. We're sleeping out of the van this weekend. But communicate what's going on. I'll pick you up Friday at noon or whatever it is. We're going to leave Thursday if it's a weekend event. Talk to them about the accommodations, food, all of that. Coordinate. Well, we're going to go out, or we're going to have breakfasts in, and then we'll go out for dinner. There's dinner Saturday night. Just communicate with your crew so that you get the expectations going, all right? The week before, you want to check the SIs. Sailing instructions, see. Now, a lot of the time, I'm racing the boat. I'm racing on the Hobie 16. We use a standard SI, so I can check the SIs in about 2 minutes with a glance. But when I'm checking the SIs, especially at bigger events, what radio channel are they on? And just a lot of stuff about the marks, color of the marks. It'd be good to know what time the skipper's meeting ends. That's usually in the NOR. But anyhow, you get the vital information, how they're going to be handling starts, where the finish is, stuff like that. All right. The week before, I always like to know who the list of competitors is. Is Rich McVeigh going to be there? He's in on this call, and Rich is another top-level national sailor. And I want to know, who the competition is, all right? And who I'm going to get a chance to see, right? And friends and competition both, all right? So I'll always check that out. I start checking the forecast and the tides that week. Everybody's got their own opinion. In my opinion, weather forecasting is still a lot like darts. Up until about 72 hours. And then I think after about 72 hours, I get a really pretty good idea of what's going on. So I'll start early because I want to kind of see what kind of changes or how quickly that forecast is changing, because it'll tell me if it's going to be a stable or unstable kind of atmosphere, you might say, if a front's moving in or not. And then when I get inside 72 hours, then I really start paying attention, and I really start looking real close to what's going on. And I'll communicate that with my crew, or something. Hey, it's going to be double trap. It's going to be friggin' 40 degrees out there. Bring everything you own, whatever it is. Or it's going to be hot. Bring a lot of sun protection. So it's just going to include a lot of stuff. And then we come to, so that takes care of the week before. Is there anything anybody does that I haven't missed, or any questions? All right. Well, feel free to, for the audience participation part of all this, but feel free to all right. Travel to the site. I have two different criteria. One I'm going to discuss. One is for a weekend regatta, just a local regatta, and one is for a big event, a nationals or a worlds. For those events, the ones that I'm used to in the classes I race in, those are typically 5-day events. So they require a lot more planning, obviously. As far as the travel goes, obviously beforehand I made all the accommodations, rental cars, all that. And just so you know, my sail can support that. Trips to Worlds for youth teams. So keep that in mind. But so I'll give you what I'm used to, and you can just go around it. Typically, the event that I'm sailing in is going Monday through Friday. All right. So let's just use that as an example. I will typically use Friday as a travel day. Oftentimes I'm traveling east. So for me, I'm losing 3 hours plus another 3 hours in the plane. There's 6 hours. It's pretty much the whole day for me. So because I don't want to burn myself out, I typically don't take a red eye. I'll usually leave in Seattle early morning, get out to the East Coast in the early afternoon. I'll travel to the accommodation, whether it's a hotel, a friend's house, Airbnb, whatever, and I'll arrive. Usually I'll try to arrive in time for dinner or something like that, and just kind of get settled down, do the whole jet lag. We made it, all right, nothing got lost, all of that. And actually it does help because I did it. I was on my way out to, I think it was the Nationals in Narragansett, and yeah, they did lose my one of our bags. So leaving early gives you enough time for the airline to catch up for you. Saturday is usually boat building day. So whether I'm chartering a boat or I trailered it out or someone else trailered it out, I'm going over it again, details. So I'm going to go through that boat with a fine-tooth comb, whether I'm chartering it or I own it. All right. And then, and usually that's about it. I mean, what I want to do, because, you know, it's easy to get amped up, right, at these things. I'm looking to just mellow out, man. And so Saturday, I'm going to check in, I'm going to register, get weighed, and I'm going to set the boat up. And that's it. I'm going to have a drink and some lunch and dinner and all of that. But you follow what I'm saying? I'm going to chill, all right? And I'm going to visit with friends, and I'm just going to chill, all right? And just take it down, all right? And then Sunday is usually a practice race. I don't put much into those. Invariably, I say, oh, I'm not going to race in those. And invariably, I do. But I will. Sunday is practice sail day. I want to get out there and make sure how the boat's going, how the setup is, get familiar with the venue. If it's a bigger event, I have arrived early to that event, several days, and just sailed it. I don't know that it really helped me. I did that in Pensacola, and it didn't really help me, but that certainly can help. And so Saturday is registration and boat build, and Sunday is practice sail. And I'll just go out for usually just maybe, I won't do a whole race. I'll do a start. I like to do 1 or 2 starts, and I'll do a weather leg and a leeward leg. And after that, I ain't going to learn any more between that day and the next. So I just usually just go in. And all right, local regatta, just a 2-day regatta, little different venue. All right, I'm usually not flying to those. If I am flying, I usually fly out on Friday, and I am a little jet lagged, but I don't care. It's just a weekend. I live in Seattle, horrific traffic. So for me, I leave early. I leave in the middle of the work day on Friday to try to avoid traffic. I can do that. If you're working if you have a regular job, when I did have a regular job, I would leave after work and I try to get out early. What I do now is I set my boat up Friday night off the trailer, ready to sail. I want the rudders are on, the trampoline is tightened, mast is up, sails are on the boat, maybe not obviously rigged, but at least on the trampoline. I'm ready to go sailing, baby. And sometimes I do. I'll just go for a little, if I get there early enough, I'll go for a little practice sail on Friday just to fun sail. I'll tell you guys, and I'm talking especially to you, Dieter, and I wish the other kid was here. Don't get burnt out on this stuff, baby. Is spend time. You're good at this, Dieter, so I have faith that you won't. Have fun with it, man. Just go out and play, because all racing makes for a really dull day, and just make sure you're not racing all the time. All right, mix it up, have some fun, fly some hulls, you know, kick it up a little bit, and avoid that. All right. And Friday night, if I do go sailing, I put my boat away like I've been there for the last week. Okay, so I'm ready to race when Saturday morning shows up. Any questions on this part of it yet? The week of, where we're traveling to this, not the week of, but where we're traveling to the site and setting up, preparing for that. No, kiddoke. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to unshare my screen. I think if I can figure out where that is. Oh, I never shared it. Cool. I think I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to run that it's a little 3-minute video. This will be the video part of today's presentation. It's it's just a recap. I know Rich will enjoy it. It'll be it's a recap of the Hobie 16 Worlds where we were out. I was there for 2 weeks, 32 races in 2 weeks. It was one whole season. I didn't race 32 races up until that point, all of last season. All right. I got 32 races in 2 weeks, and I got in one extra season. You follow what I'm saying here? It's a big deal. It was a marathon. I signed up, I was sailing every day, you know, and by the end of it, I didn't make the cut into the finals, and I think the reason was because I was just done. But boy, up until then, man, it was a lot of fun. So let me see if I can find my screen here, share that. All right, I'm gonna put that away, and let me see if I can find a video. Where is it? It's going to be this one. I was hoping it'd be all set up. All right. All right, thanks to Hobie Cat Company and International Hobie Class Association for showing that little video. Somebody's got mic on. Where's that? Oh, wait a minute, that's me. Hold on. I got it. Oh, crap. I'm playing it again. All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So a couple things that I know. First of all, that aerial of the start was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty interesting to watch how that works. And I might watch some more of that and analyze it. But the other thing that I took away from that video was the very end. Did you notice that the top 3 guys on the podium all had their country flag? They came prepared, all right? you're going to a Worlds in another country, bring the American flag with you, because you never know when you'll be standing on the podium. Preparation, my friends. Any questions so far?
Yeah, that's a good video, Peter. How much bumping happens in a race like that, a big start?
Not much at all. There was, yeah, you mean I have to start? None whatsoever. No, it's actually, in my opinion, really well organized and a lot easier to start at a national or a Worlds than it is at a local event. It's different because, and we'll talk about starting actually, I'm planning to do a thing on starting next week. But at the world level, yeah, they're aggressive, but it's an organized aggression, all right? Okay. At the local level, you got people barging in and they're late and they're coming. And you got, as my buddy Pedro Colon says, they're either cowboys or tourists. And it can get ugly, all right? So, and Pedro would tell, he would tell me, Peter, just stay away from the cowboys. Those are the guys who are going for the pin or whatever. They're going to get whatever they can at all costs. And then the tourists are the ones who are there for the first time. You know, they're at the start line going, gee, what's all this? What's going on? What's all the activity about or whatever. But at the national and the world level, it's really well organized. You find your spot on the line, and then it's just a matter of pulling the trigger and holding a lane. And so at the bigger event, it's all about, at the bigger events, that's what it's all about. I remember when I first started going to North Americans, I couldn't hold a lane. You know, I was still getting pretty good starts, but I couldn't hold a lane. Mm-hmm. And what I'm learning is that at these bigger events, there's the haves and the have-nots. And the haves can hold their lane on that weather leg, and they're not getting spit out on a regular basis. Now, over the course of 5 days, yeah, I get wasted and I get spit out the back and all that. But on a race after race basis, the top third of the fleet is holding their lane for at least a third to a half of that weather leg before they have to bail or something else. And of course, the top leaders are able to hold their lane all the way and round in the top 10 usually. That's kind of the way it sorts out. And at the world level though, yeah, it was good. And actually, I was down at the pin with the big boys, a big part of that event. And I was getting wasted, but I was able to hold my lane. So there was a guy from Australia, and I mean, twice he got me, man. Because one, man, I owned the pin. Oh, it was gonna be beautiful. And he came over, one time he came over the top of me, the next time he came underneath me, and he owned me. I was like, ah. But anyhow, so yeah. Anything else? Any other questions or anything?
I had a question. On the start, it looked like the people towards the pin were sailing way lower angles than the people at the boat. Was that because of shift, or what was going on?
Generally, at the pin, so there's two kinds of sailing multis, I think. There's high mode, regular mode, and low mode. I tend to be a low mode, meaning I want speed. My attitude is that I can't point without speed, so I tend to lay it down a little bit more, which is one reason. And so the people at the pin, for them it's a drag race. Their attitude is, I just want to get out there. And I watched a world champion, Gavin Colby, was there, and he was below me. I was like maybe third or fourth up from the pin. And I watched Gavin and Worsty is his crew. I watched Gavin and Worsty, and it's like they were making a break for Venezuela. I mean, these guys were so low, and it was like, where are they going? What is going on? Now, he's a world champion. Sure enough, he gets out beyond the corner. I mean, I don't know where he was. I could barely see him by the time he tacked. Hardly ever. He was that fast and that low. And when he tacked, boom, he crossed everybody, and he was first at the mark. The guys up at the and Rich, if you have a different opinion on this, chime in. But the guys up at the committee boat, they're working on holding their lane, and they've got a lot of people below them. So they've got to maintain their lane, and they can't come down. So you'll see the guys at the pin, and yeah, they'll go for the speed because they want to get out there in the fresh air, get away. There's a picket fence, okay? And you want to get away from that picket fence, and so you can get fresh air, and now you're able to gain a couple more feet on the competition or whatever, and that can help you when it comes into a crossing situation. So that's generally the thinking down at the pin. But everybody else, and that's good of you to note that, Dieter. Everybody else, they got a lot of boats. You'll see them, and the guys. Let me see. How do I do this so you can see it? I don't know. The guys, anyhow, down at the pin, they're really low. A few lanes up, they're not quite so low. And by the time you get up to midline, they're just trying to hold a lane and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was. And there were times when it paid to go right, and then you want to be up at the committee boat. So when you have 56 boats, it's not a bad idea to pick a side. I mean, we'll get into tactics a different time. But if we have time after this, and you want to revisit this, we can. Okay. So that was our little video. Okay, so let's talk about day one, right? And it pretty much is the same whether it's a big event or a local event. But I like to maintain a schedule. And I am constantly, I'm somebody who I want, time is important to me. And if I get behind schedule, I'm constantly monitoring my morning to know if I am behind schedule. What do I mean by that? If I don't have my boat set up and we're at the skipper's meeting, I am behind schedule. If a lot of other things haven't happened, breakfast, SI review, all that stuff, weather forecast. I've got a whole, and I don't know that I have necessarily an order of doing it, but I know when I wake up in the morning, I'll check the weather forecast and I'll get some breakfast. I might wander out and visit with friends. I'm an early riser. If you're a late riser, this is particularly important because you don't want to get behind schedule, man, because if I get behind schedule, I can't speak for you. If I get behind schedule, I get antsy, I get nervous, and I'm more prone to snap at my crew maybe, or something else, right? So I want to know preparation, man. I want to be prepared. So I'll get up, I'll visit with friends, I'll wander down to the boat, usually an hour and a half before the skipper's meeting, and I'll rig the boat. And then I'll come back and maybe I'll do some, and then depending on it, I don't get dressed until I see the committee boat or I see the chase boats pulling marks into the water or blowing them up. But usually, I think they have to pull them. Just depends on the venue, how far away. If they can lay marks real quick, then I'm probably getting dressed when they're blowing them up. But a lot of times they have to, take them out a ways. And so I wait for the chase boats to leave the beach. I go, okay, it's going to be sailing time. That's when I go and I start putting on my gear. And usually it's just a wetsuit or a dry suit or something. When they call us off the beach, then I go down to my boat. It's all rigged, ready to roll. I put my harness and life jacket on. Key point, harness goes on first. Life jacket over the harness. All right, because you don't want your harness squeezing against your life jacket. You want that harness not super tight, but relatively snug. We'll talk about that a different time. And then I'm ready to go sailing. but it's really important to maintain a schedule. And the last few years, I've used that vernacular in my vocabulary, and it's really helped. And I tell my crew, hey, it looks like you're behind schedule. You know, I'd like to ask you to move it along if you can. All right. They have called us off the beach, and so I grab my harness, my life jacket, go down to the boat. It's all rigged, right? I'll do some last minute rigging on an Hobie 18. It'd be my jib luff tension. On a Hobie 16, I'll put the downhaul on, and I'll check my tension one last time. You never know when somebody might have come along and adjusted things for you. And so I'll just do a last minute checkup. Yep, it's all good. We'll push off. Okay. I typically like to be, if not the first, then one of the first boats out on the course. Again, I'm into preparation big time. And so I will get out there early. And when I'm sailing, if there's another boat around, I'm usually racing because I'm just doing a tuning, you know, and stuff like that. I'll get out immediately into what I call the start box. And I will sail the upwind leg, if not all the way, then most of the way. I'll look at my ley lines and I'll look at the favored side. If I can find a training partner, then I will do one of these deals where Dieter goes out to the right, I go out to the left. We tack at the same time, and we find out who meets. All right, that tells me which side is going to be more favored, maybe. And then I sail again back downwind, same thing. And then I'll take a look at the line, and it's really important. If you're going to be a good starter in this one design thing that you're doing, you got to check out the starting line. It doesn't pay for you to go sail off on the starboard extension somewhere, park it, and have your second breakfast or whatever. Talk about what you're going to do tonight or whatever. You need to be collecting information. All right. While I'm going up that weather leg, there's Armand. Good. Hello, Armand, and thanks for joining us. We're on you kind of missed the first part. Maybe I'll make this video available to you because I got a soft spot for youth, and I am making the videos available for you. So if Sammy wants to get in on this, or anybody else who is youth, have them call me and contact me, and I can share that with them. But otherwise, we're not going to share this video, I don't think. And so, Armand, to bring you up to real speed, the shortened version, we've covered what you can be doing right now, what you need to be doing the first week before the event. We talked about travel to the site. And we just finished talking about day one, basically the morning, as you will, the morning routine. And one thing I'll share with you, the last thing I just shared with the rest of the crew, and that is that I like to be on schedule, and that's terminology that I am now using, and I'm monitoring how my morning is going to help me determine if I'm on schedule or behind schedule, and that schedule continues out on the water. All right, and if the committee catches me off guard and they start racing and they've got the 16 class, for instance, first, I'm behind schedule. I'm getting back there as quick as I can. Usually I don't wander too far. After I've done an upwind and a downwind, I don't wander too far from the starting area after that. But I will, that time before the first start especially, is critically important for collecting information. All right, you want to monitor. First of all, you ought to be looking at the weather. You had the forecast. I forgot to mention this. So that first day, you've been checking the forecast, you've been updating it the last 72 hours. You know what to expect. You and your crew have talked about it. Yeah, it's going to be a sunny day. By the way, today is an awesome day for sailing. It's going to be a sunny day. We're expecting a front to come through, which we're having right now. It's going to be probably 12 to 20, and it'll probably taper off towards the end of the day. And then, is it going to be stable or unstable? Are we expecting a lot of puffs and shifts? Typically, you know, my experience has been that in the northern climate, the puffs are usually righties and the lulls are lefties. And so you can anticipate a little bit and gain a few inches that way. But anyhow, you start talking, you've talked with your crew in the morning after you look up the weather on shore. Yeah, this is the kind of day it's going to be. When you go out and you've done your upwind and your downwind, that's confirming the forecast. How accurate are they? All right. And how confident do you feel about their accuracy? Because if they were calling for 12 to 20 and you're seeing 3 to 4 or whatever, is it coming in and it's just coming in late? What was the forecast for? Was it an easterly? Oh, it's a southeasterly. You can just start taking all this stuff in. If they're spot on, you know, you got a high confidence, all right? That confidence will come in on your tactics. Because I have another little term. I'm a tactician on big boats, and I love tactics. I have another term I'll share with you, and we'll do tactics maybe another time. It's called, and I use this on my big boat, but it's also good on the Hobie. It's called leverage and protect. And it's like, and that's my little term, leverage and protect. How far do I want to leverage myself against the fleet? And what side do I want to protect? And that the leverage speaks to the confidence. If I've got really high confidence that this breeze, the sea state is what was forecast, I'm willing to leverage a lot more than if this is just a crapshoot, okay? Ditto with the protection too. Which side am I willing to protect? So I sailed upwind, I've sailed downwind. I'm now at the starting line, all right? You want to check to see, well, first of all, hopefully you've checked to see if there's lifts and headers, if there's intervals to them, if there's a pattern. You want to be checking the sky for clouds, seeing, because usually where there's clouds, there's wind, seeing how they're moving, you know. If your wind is coming from the north and the clouds are going westerly at high elevation, you know, you might be ready to expect a little bit of a westerly shift, a left shift, as it were, to that northerly. Not always, but just be ready for it. And so you're collecting information. You're looking at the committee boat. How organized are they? Are they still getting their act together, or is this a crack crew? Where is the start line? You know, is it at the mast, at the back of the boat? Stuff like that. What's the pin? Is it big, or is it just a little piling? What side's favored? Of course, that's all stuff. We'll get into ranging the line. If you don't know, we'll talk about that next week. So we'll range the start line, and then when they move it, then we have to range it all over again. There's just a lot of information that you can and should be collecting before that first start. And then after the start, usually after about, for me, after about 2.5 minutes, inside of 2.5 minutes, I'm usually pretty locked into my plan. I mean, it's a high risk deal to decide, oh, I'm up here at the committee boat, I think I'll go down to the pin. You can, and I have, but it's high risk. Usually within about 2.5 minutes, I'm usually in my mode. I'm in final approach. Hey, little timeout. Can somebody explain to me why the pilots always call it final approach? Can't they just say, hey, you guys, we're coming into the airport and we're going to land and we'll be there for a couple hours and then we're going to take off again? Why do they always have to say final approach? it gives me the willies every time. But anyhow, side note. All right. Little joke there. All right, you guys. All right.
My son's a pilot. I'll ask him for you, Peter. Okay.
Good. Appreciate that. The word final, just interim approach, or I don't know. Anyhow. All right, and so you can only do all of that if you get out to the course early. All right. After the start, obviously, the first 30 to 45 seconds, it's a drag race. But during that first weather leg, you and your crew should be confirming what you saw. You should be confirming the forecast. You could be, I forgot to mention this, excuse me. Let me go back. After you've been doing all of this checking of the line and everything, you and your crew should be talking about, well, where do you want to start? What's the weather leg going to look like? What's our strategy for the weather leg? All right. Well, I think we want to bang the left corner. I think we ought to bang the right corner. I think we ought to go up the middle. I think we ought to go 2/3 up the left side and then lead them back. Whatever it is, and that's tactics for another time. You and your crew should have a pretty clear idea of what's going to happen, subject to change without notice, because Rich McVeigh or Enrique Figueroa or some other hotshot just rolled us, and like, oh crap, now we have to have a different plan. All right, and so now what you're gonna do though is, if you can hold to that plan, that's your primary plan. Let's say you do get rolled and you have to bail, because clear air in a big fleet is game. It's all you bail out. Do you tack back, or do you continue going the other way? Usually in my book, I tack back. I'll burn that extra 2 tacks, because if I feel strongly that one side was favored, I'm going to get over there, damn it. Going the wrong way doesn't make sense, but that's sailing. Am I on the favored tack? Did I get ahead or left? Everything comes into it. So, that's for another time. If you're not getting rolled and you're holding your lane, then you and your crew need to have a continual conversation on the boat. How you doing? Your hair looks great. But it should also include, so should we stick with our plan? Are you seeing anything that you think should make us deviate from going 2/3 of the way out? Should we be tacking early, or should we go all the way out? I remember at Worlds, man, doing that all day long. All right, especially on the first mark. And then we would round the gate on the second weather leg, and I'd be asking my crew, well, what do you think? Should we go halfway up, or all the way to the lay line, or part way? What are we gonna, what do you think? And we're having this conversation all day long, and I'm taking her input, and I'm making the final decision. I'm the skipper, but she had valuable information, or he would have valuable information, because I also did masters with a guy, and bingo, we were constantly evaluating and reevaluating that. All right, and then for the rest of the race, that's more tactics, and you evaluate that. We can talk about that another time. We can talk about it today when I'm done here, and I am kind of wrapping it up here soon. Each subsequent race of the day, after you're done racing, your priority should be rest, hydration, and refueling, probably in that order. So get over to the side of the course, and if you have time, rest, hydrate, and refuel. Maintaining proper hydration is critical to critical thinking. And if you do not hydrate, there's a very good chance that you're going to make an irrational decision. Refueling goes without saying, obviously. That's something you have to do as often. And the rest, certainly as the regatta goes on, as the day goes on, you want to maintain that. But I mean, if they're going right into rolling starts, you know, going right into starts. You don't have a choice. You know, that was always the problem I had is back in the 80s, I'd be pulling up the tail end, and it's not easy sailing at the tail end. You're working it the whole time, right? Because you're out of control and, you know, and you're working super hard to try to catch up. And you finally get across the start line. Time to rest. And there goes the horn. They're rolling right into another one. The leaders, they've been resting for the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's not fair. All right? So there's some motivation to get up to the top of the fleet. You get more rest. And so as soon as you go into rotation, boom, the same thing happens. You've got to recheck the line, you guys. The wind changed. That westerly did put a bend into that northerly, and they had to move the start mark. So you've got to check which end is favored again. You've got to check which side of the course is favored again. And which side of the course you want to sail on, and what part of the start line you want to sail on, you want to start at. Boy, I've got one that I forgot about, and I think I'm just going to throw it in here. All right, this really goes back to attitude. I'll tell you, compared to where I was 20 years ago, sailing will make you a man in a lot of ways. And it has for me. And I am a lot more positive now than I was even 20 or 30 years ago. And I've worked hard at it. And I can tell you life is a lot more enjoyable because of it. And I can also tell you that your crew will hang around a lot longer if you're a lot more positive. If you're sitting there and belly aching at him or her, telling, my God, man, my grandmother tacks faster than that. Give me that damn sheet, man. I'll pull that thing in myself. If you're pulling that kind of stuff, you better have a long crew list because you're going to be burning through them pretty quick. All right. And so you want to be lifting up your crew. Here's the deal I've learned. My crew would say, Peter, you're one of the best sailors I've sailed with. Oh my gosh, I heard that, and all of a sudden, I grew 2 inches. I'm walking around. Really? Really? It was empowering, man. All of a sudden, I started building confidence. Your crew needs that too, man. If you expect to participate at high levels, you need to be pumping up the crew. Oh, well, my crew, came from an Olympic campaign and already knows all that. I don't care. They still need to hear it from you. All right. So build your crew up, and crews, when you're crewing, build your skipper up. All right. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So each day thereafter, you're going to stick to that same routine. Be a creature of routine at these regattas. One thing about my starting that I'll tell you, I'll go back to my days in Bend, Oregon in the late 80s when I was developing this killer starting technique, which we'll talk about next week, little teaser. But I created a routine, and every start, I still have it to this day. It's my comfort blanket now, partly. But at 2.5 minutes, you can oftentimes see me jibing on the starboard ley line of the start line for a start. And I'm setting up. And if I'm at 2.5 minutes, boom. And I do variations. Like at Worlds, I was doing dip starts. So I'd be hanging out above the line, above the committee boat, not even off the starboard extension. I'd be just directly upwind of the committee boat. And they'd go into sequence, and I'd be watching what they're doing. And I would drop in, usually I would jibe down at 3 minutes. So I was doing variations of that, but it was a routine. And when I had a routine, I could tell where I was, if I was ahead of schedule or if I was behind schedule. So that scheduling works on the start line as well as on shore and on water. And so you might practice that is, all right, I'm going to get out to the start line 1 hour or whatever it is before the start. I'm going to do these kinds of things. I'm going to check out, boom, 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 in this schedule, my start line. I'm going to rest. One thing I recommend that you do too is, I'm bouncing around here a little bit at the end here, I'm sorry, but after you've checked out the start line and you've done your upwind, your downwind, you've done all your information gathering, and if you still have time, just go over and just take a chill pill. Just go over there, take a chill pill, park the boat, and just relax. Because you've been working out. You've been intense, man. If you're like me, you're collecting information. You're just full on alertness. Now, take some time off, all right? I race on a big boat, and I'm second helm on that. And a lot of times, all the time, I will take the helm from the skipper between races, just so that he doesn't have to, just to give him a rest, all right? And we needed to on the Hobies. So, so take a chill pill after you've done all your information gathering. But once the gun goes off and you're in sequence, it's game on, baby. And you have your plan. Go into the start area, make sure it's good, come back around, do your final approach, and get ready to start. So that's each day thereafter. Any questions about that? Okay, so the preparation doesn't end there. It actually continues on while you're breaking the boat down. You might see something that, oh, I didn't know you put it, the shrouds on that hole. I thought it was on the other hole. But anyhow, but particularly on the way home, the preparation for the next event begins now. You start noting all the things that you need to do to your boat to maintain it in that top level that you're accustomed to, that you're demanding of, that your crew's demanding of, that both of you are demanding of, all right? So you're making a note. Maybe you're breaking the boat down. Maybe it was a thrasher weekend, 20 to 25 knots, out there. And, you're beleaguered, your boat's tired. And, oh, we need to change that, and that, and that, and that. All right? So it begins immediately on the breakdown. It also begins on the way home. Use that time wisely. All right? You may need to, if it's been a thrasher weekend, you might, your crew or you might need to sleep. But if you can, discuss situations. Bring up, hey, remember that third race today where that boat was crossing us? What were you thinking at that time, right before you hit him? No, just kidding, just kidding. But what were you thinking about? Were you thinking maybe we could cross him, or what was the plan there? And get to know your crew a little bit better that way, or your skipper. Or when you tacked on the ley line, it looked like we were short, but actually we ended up overstanding. What did you see there? Help me understand that, or whatever. Rules, hey, you remember when we were coming to that boat and that one boat stuck their bows in and we just kind of gave it to them? Did we have rights there? I don't know. Let's look up what the rule book says. And I remember a good catamaran sailor, a man who's won the Hobie 18 North Americans and other North American championships more often than any man should have. Ken Marshak, he's a homer from the Pacific Northwest. And Ken, when he was sailing with his son Eric, that's what they would do on the way home. They'd have the rules book out and they were playing rules game. So, situations, doesn't have to be your situation. It can be a situation you heard about. It can be a situation that you were on the committee for. It can be a situation you just saw on the water. But you can start talking about rules and educating your crew. Oh, I already know all the rules. Yeah, well, your crew may not, or your crew may have a different interpretation of the rules. That's why there's protest committees. So it's good if you can get on the same page there. I like to talk about what worked and what didn't work that weekend. All right. And that will include boat rigging. It'll include crew work. It'll include tactics. All right. And I'm going to share my screen with you one more time because it's a good idea. Ooh, I don't have this up yet. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to go find it on my computer. So that way you don't have to, let me see, where is it? Because what you're going to want to do is put together a archive, a sailing archive. And this is, wait a minute, I don't have it. That's not it. It's I'm sorry, not an archive. I call it a racing log. And so I'm going to share this with you. You know, I did this back in Lotus 123 or Word 97. Anyhow, you get the message. It was done a long time ago. You guys can do a whole lot better. The difference is I created this 20 years ago. You guys may or may not have. And now I've got a folder and it's called Sailing Logs or whatever. And the next time I go to Pensacola, the next time I go to Narragansett Bay, the next time I go wherever, I'm gonna pull this up and I'll look it over. And so I'll talk about which regatta it was. That helps me, the dates. So that kind of helps me remember, you know, what mental state maybe I was in. Oh, that was something I forgot to mention. Take inventory the week of and the weekend of what your mental state is, all right? Because if they just foreclosed on your house, repossessed your car, and the girlfriend just left you, that's going to be a whole lot different mental state than if you just won the national lottery, all right? So internally reflect all of that stuff and recognize, because you know what, if they've just foreclosed on me and did all that other crap, I'm probably going to take a lot more conservative approach, I guess you might say. I'm just going to try to survive the weekend. But, you know, if I'm feeling good about it, if I'm feeling in sync with my crew, if we've had a big fight with crews, not that that would ever happen, of course, but if it did, that's going to be a lot different than, man, if we're, you know, clicking on all cylinders. But anyhow, so I've got the date in here, the location, that which includes really the venue, the time of the first start, because that'll have importance too. I'm going to put in what my forecast was and what I really saw. Well, yeah, it was north wind 10 to 20. Day one was 5 to 10 from the southeast, you know, or whatever. All right. I'm going to put in any boat tuning notes. Yeah, needed to depower due to the strong wind, so I flattened my battens and loosened jib halyard or whatever. Competitors. Well, we had Francisco and Rich and Moderman and the usual suspects, whatever. I'm going to talk about the comments about the start. Was there anything unusual or significant about the start that I want to remember? Lumpy seas, get there early, committee boat had their head up their ass. We all love to you know, crush the committee. That's not fair to Matt. I hope he's not listening. And just stuff like that. I'm going to talk about comments about the beat. We were seeing the left side was paying heavy early in the day, but the right later in the afternoon. That was true on this last North Americans we did up in Canada. Comments about the run, and here's where I talk about what worked and what didn't work, and then I just have general comments. And I'm happy to make this available if you guys want to use it. It's nothing special. You can create one. Actually, it's probably even better than that. But anyhow, you should actually have a log, especially you, Dieter, because you will be sailing at these venues multiple times, and you too, Armand, because you guys got a lot longer to live on this planet than the rest of us. And you will be visiting those sites over and over, and you can really create a really good database from it. Any questions on any of that? Nope. Well, gentlemen, we have reached the end of our coaching clinic. I don't really have much else. I'm sure there's more. And I'm sure there's stuff I forgot about, but stay tuned. I'm sure Robbie and Jill will get a hold of this, and they'll be able to add to it. They are off next week. I'm going to be doing next week on starts, and I'll give you a little teaser to it, because several years ago, I learned a real cool way for starting that's really easy. It does take practice, but it's really easy. And Marshak helped a lot with that, I think. And there's probably been some other people. I don't think I'm smart enough to have come up with it myself. So kudos to all the other people who helped. I can't remember. But anyhow, next week we're going to talk about the start, and I will have video, because I do have some GoPro of my 20, last year's crew. Was it last year? No, year before last. My crew from year before last. And he and I would train out of Shill Shoal, our local marina there, every week. And as Robbie talked about in the training, we would practice our starts every session. All right. I would end on it. Robbie was suggesting starting and ending, and I might try that. But I would always end on a start, and I would always end on a good start. If you follow my take, it's one boat testing. I don't have the benefit of two boats, but I know when I've nailed it, and I know when I haven't. And you only know that if you've been practicing it. We'll talk more about that next week, you guys. Thanks for joining. Hope you got some good stuff out of it, and stay safe. All right?
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. That was great information.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Makes me happy.